This is Viper, and I'm sorry if I sound sick in advance. I got the YouTube copyright virus, unfortunately. But I might as well try to record this video now, we'll see. Shimo, arguably Godzilla's most powerful opponent he faces in the Monsterverse, only really being contended by Ghidorah. And also being the oldest of the Titans, even to where people call her the mother of all Titans. How strong is she exactly? Well, there's not much to go over considering her 2 minutes of screen time, but I think it's good we cover her considering how strong she is, but also considering how underrated yet overrated she often is in compared to other characters within the Monsterverse. So I think it's start off to talk about what Shimo was doing in ancient times, which we know a couple things. One, Shimo fought Godzilla directly in the past, with cave paintings seeming to show that Shimo was winning at first glance according to the novel. However, the novel later specifies that this is just artists overhyping and putting in their feelings into the artwork, which is backed by the fact not only is it confirmed Godzilla won their encounter outright, but it's also just logic. One's locking the hollow earth and one isn't. I've heard people say that locking someone and chopping them means he's weaker. No, that still implies that Godzilla was just beating Shimo up. That's not really how that works. It's a pretty shitty interpretation, and it's not really backed up. However, it should be noted that ancient Godzilla is in fact more powerful than just outright base Godzilla, considering better performances against Ghidorah and Shimo, at least from what we're aware of, and the fact that Earth had 10 times our radiation at the time. Though something to note is that Shimo's ice beam is equivalent to ancient Godzilla's atomic breath in terms of power, which is impressive considering that nothing else in the verse except for Ghidorah will be able to survive a full power point blank beam from Godzilla's atomic breath. More to less scale to it. So Shimo's beam, even ignoring the freezing aspects already in terms of just pure AP, would one-shot most of the verse except for 2 characters. Speaking of her beam as well, it is just outright absolute zero. We also know that she fought and was able to freeze Ghidorah, which I don't think it would make a lot of sense for King of the Monsters to be suddenly contradicted. So Godzilla was definitely there to help Shimo to an unknown degree. This goes to the point where it was described that Godzilla knocked Ghidorah into the water and then Shimo used her Ice Age to freeze it. So it's definitely a 2v1 situation. And if we go by some cave paintings, Mothra was also involved in the fight. We also know that it was possible Shimo was there when Godzilla was soloing Scar King's army and got beat by Godzilla there too. And we see Scar King with the whip. As we see Scar King specifically with the whip that is specifically for controlling Shimo and nothing really else. That is the whole point of the whip, it comes from Shimo's back. That's the crystal. However, this is just more speculation than anything. Well, let's go back to current times. Or, well, 2027 to be more specific, I guess. We first know via the fact that Godzilla was supercharging himself to face her.
Man, I really do feel myself getting stronger.
Which already puts her above the base 2024 state after he recharged from the Scylla fight. And she's also just outright compared to Ghidorah in terms of threat, which however is later said that Ghidorah is more bad and more of a threat. But either way, the characters at least now think that the Ghidorah and Shimo are comparable. But either way, it makes sense for Ghidorah and Shimo to be comparable. Both are above a base Godzilla by a decent margin and need Godzilla to amp himself to beat them. We first meet Shimo under the control of Scar King, and although some people want to think that Scar King's control was permanently beating Shimo, this is never shown, only in the specific moment, and then she just seems fine again. And then we get to Shimo's encounter with Kong, and effectively Shimo, with a graze of her beam, not even a direct hit, was able to put Kong in a near-death state without the Beast Glove, which makes sense considering how the Beast Glove, not only do we know that it can just rip off Kong's arm casually even with the Beast Glove, Shimo's tail whips send Kong flying on his ass, and she uses Kong as an utter shoot toy. Already like Godzilla and Ghidorah, she scares way above Kong. Kong going even as far to say that she is the strongest thing he's ever faced, which include things like Base Evolve, 2021, Mecha Godzilla, Scar King, Camazotz, and more. We also learned at this time in the director's commentary that she's outright stronger than Base Godzilla, and so his are ice powers, and considering the timeline, this is also probably referring to the subatomic Goji, or blue GXK Goji we see in the film as well, maybe even just Base Evolve. However, after the cave fight, Shimo has pretty much no screen time, which leads us to the final fight in the film. At the start of the Hollow Earth fight, Evolve holds the advantage for a period of time. However, something to note, even with Godzilla's adaptations to be able to break free and counter Shimo's Ice Beam, Shimo still freezes him regardless for a good period of time to where Mothra has to save him. But when they get up to Rio, as I mentioned before, she's able to use Kong as a chew toy, and she also overpowers Base Evolve Godzilla to the point where she could throw him across the city even after being off-guarded. While Evolve had the advantage in zero gravity, Shimo had the advantage on land, even stating that she was a heavyweight compared to Godzilla's middleweight. However, when Godzilla does end up going Spiral, not only is Spiral considered the strongest Titan at the time, Shimo, while surviving the blast that attacks him, Spiral is the one who is pressing Shimo, as we see in the film. While Shimo doesn't get a single hit in, and Spiral is the one slamming Shimo around. Despite Kong's opinion saying that Shimo was still winning, the movie just contradicts this. And considering how this same movie shows that Shimo was in awe of Godzilla's power,
and blasts his laser breath straight up into the sky, causing colorful ripples to surge out across the clouds. The other Titans behold the phantasmagoric display. The crystalline spikes on Shimo's back light up as her eyes twinkle with wonderment. The juvenile ape.
But I suggest you look at my 2024 Godzilla power scaling video for further scaling into Evolved. So while definitely Shimo makes Base Evolved look like ass, Spiral and therefore Thermonuclear would beat Shimo. For comparisons against Ghidorah, the two are definitely relative, and Shimo can freeze Ghidorah. The problem is Ghidorah can interrupt this beam. The only reason he was frozen so easily last time was it being an off guard and him already being injured. It's not an instant win con for Shimo like a lot of people think. But in terms of raw stats, the two should be comparable. Anything physically one can do, the other should be able to. I said about the literal designer of Shimo who was biased to her, that in the novel too. And just the fact that both are above Base Godzilla, could even fight off stronger forms of him, needing to ultra buff himself to put down Shimo and Ghidorah respectively. You can say either one wins. Personally, I'd go for Ghidorah, but if you think Shimo wins, that's fine. It's simply a close fight. The fight is mainly just, do you think Ghidorah's regen, energy absorption, and better battle intelligence takes it, or Shimo's absolute zero in ice powers, as well as her experience?
Fearsome Godzilla has evolved.
I remember when they first invented
Fearsome Godzilla has evolved.
I always hated it!
Either way, nobody but the stronger forms of Godzilla and Ghidorah would be able to stand a chance or beat her. Everyone else should lose horrendously to Shimo, and she's easily in the same tier as the other big boys in the verse, Godzilla and Ghidorah, in which she's above everything else in the verse by a long shot.